Welcome to Beyond the Code, the podcast where industry experts and brilliant legal minds discuss the impact of new emerging technologies. I'm your host, Yitzy Hammer, a lawyer and tech enthusiast. Join us as we explore the legal, regulatory, and ethical issues surrounding AI, blockchain, and more. Get ready to go beyond the code and stay ahead of the game. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Code. Today, I'm joined by a fellow podcaster, somebody who I presume feels very comfortable with the mic. I have Carlo D'Angelo, otherwise known as the DeFi Defender on X and other places. He has definitely been broadcasting about crypto for at least as long as I'm in the industry, going back to I don't know, actually, as long as I've been active on crypto Twitter, you've been there on the space. I even remember, I think, shortly after I met you in New York a couple of years ago, you won a prize for the most active Twitter lawyer at NFT NYC. Is that right? Or you were number two?
I was nominated. I was nominated. I was in good company, but did not make the final vote.
All right. So the one less trophy to have in your on your backdrop, but nominated is certainly more than I got. So kudos for the nomination. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined by Carlo D'Angelo, the DeFi Defender, and we're going to hear all about what that actually means and his rich career in crypto defense law, or DeFi defense law, if we don't want to limit it too much. Carlo, welcome to the podcast, man.
Hammer, it's a pleasure to finally do this with you. We've been, as you said, friends in this space for a long time, but I'm glad to be on your show, and congratulations to all the success you're having. I love to see what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the likes and retweets. It means a lot. Of course. Tell me, who are you? Share your journey with us a little bit. Pre-crypto, crypto. How'd you get to be where you are today?
So I'm a criminal defense lawyer by trade. That's what I've been doing for nearly 30 years. I started out my career in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. I was originally a public defender, which means I defended indigent defendants who could not afford an attorney. After doing a few years there, getting a lot of trials under my belt, I went into private practice. Probably within, I would say, 10 years of being in private practice, I got an opportunity to teach at a law school and started out as an adjunct professor, and then it graduated into a full-time position. Did that for a little bit, but it was very taxing to try to balance working a full-time law practice with a very understanding law partner and trying to be a legal research and writing professor and grading papers. So I quickly realized that was not a sustainable lifestyle. Packed up, came to East Texas, where I opened up a law office in Tyler, Texas, and claim to fame, Tyler, Texas is now the home of Crypto.com's U.S. headquarters. Wow. I did not plan that in any way, Yitzy, but it just happened to be that way. And when I got to Texas, I've always been fascinated with technology, be it AI, be it anything that can automate or simplify life. And it wasn't long before I discovered NFTs as my first entrance into crypto. I think Gary Vee turned me on to them, actually, and became fascinated with the potential NFTs, use cases.
Fine.
And, I was fascinated with the use cases, became a collector, and then started to become really interested. I did have a little exposure to crypto back in 2018, 2019, bought some things, but like many people during that time, forgot about my Binance wallet. Things sort of just passed, and I did not look at it again until I discovered NFTs. And then once I got deep into NFTs and crypto, I quickly realized, wait a minute, I can be of use to this space because there is a lot of unanswered questions, both regulatory questions and from the legal perspective. And I remember distinctly the time that it happened. You'd see I was sitting on a space with a bunch of lawyers, some of which we are friends with, and they were having a space about taxes and crypto taxes in particular. And I was listening to the questions that people were asking, and it just really hit me full on at that point that there's a place here for me. And that's how I created the DeFi Defender. The DeFi defense lawyer
Stop. You're going
essentially,
too fast, man. You're going too fast.
okay,
I like to
okay,
do this slow. As it is, I let you run way too far. We're gonna have to
okay,
backtrack a little bit. Okay.
no
Way
problem.
before crypto, I want to pick your brain a little bit.
Yep.
Public defense lawyer. Okay, what's that
Mhm.
like? Is it like in the movies, like where you show up at court at the jailhouse and you have no idea who it is you're representing, and you're like, "Oh, David, where's David?" And you see some like random guy who's stuck up for drug charges, and then like you find him, and it's like some crazy story, and you go and meet his wife. Is that all like it is in the movies, or is nothing like that?
Not quite. So generally the way it happens is I would be assigned to a courtroom to work in one courtroom, and anybody who had a case in that courtroom that could not afford a lawyer would apply to see if they could qualify for an indigent lawyer, and that would be yours truly. It's not always the
In which
best foot
case,
to
the
start on.
state pays your legal fees.
Yes.
Okay.
So there are different systems, but in Florida, it is taxpayer funded. So we work for a dedicated defender office. So we have a budget for investigators, support staff. It's not like I'm just a solo who's on a contract. It was a full blown office. And because we had that, and because we had good resources, we were able to really deliver effective services to the indigent community. I started out as an intern. This is fascinating. This is what really jump started my trial career. I started out as a certified legal intern in law school. And what that did, Yitzy, is it gave me an opportunity to, as an intern, before I even graduated law school, work under the supervision of a public defender in that office and go to trial. You know, the public defender would be overloaded with work and they'd say, "Hey, kid, take these files, go to the jail, see these clients." And I would sit second chair. And by the time I graduated law school, I'd already had about a dozen, maybe 15 criminal trials under my belt.
Wow. So is it the kind of thing that people go to because like they want to do good for the world, or because it's the best way to get yourself in front of a court and gain the most experience?
Both. It's an excellent opportunity to get courtroom exposure because you're in a situation where you probably are more likely to go to the trial stage of a case, and because you represent so many people, so your odds of actually getting a trial go up tremendously. And there are also people in that office that are, as we call them, lifers, that do it because they believe in the cause and it's their career and they do it until they retire. But most lawyers use it as a springboard to move on to something else like private practice.
Okay, so you went there, that helped you become like the amazing lawyer you are today. Then you went to private practice, presumably doing criminal defense related stuff, but hadn't hit the crypto epiphany hadn't come into your head yet. And then you were on that X Spaces and you're like, crypto. Okay, and then now let's go from there because that's what we got up to.
Yeah, because when I started, I'm an old man. They call me in the group chat the padrino of crypto lawyers. Because when I started out in private practice in 2000, there was no Satoshi, there was no blockchain, there was cryptography, but that's about as far as it went. So it was not on my radar until much later, obviously. And then when I found it, I became fully immersed in it. I wanted to learn it, understand the tech. And the best way to do that was, as you do, to be putting out content, to be looking at every new development, and hosted tons of Twitter spaces back in the day. I know you were on some of those Twitter spaces. Lexline was something that I created with a friend in the space, and we hosted hundreds of shows. Tried to do it consistently because there was just so much going on back then, and it was just such a fun time to be in this space.
Yeah, you say tried, and where is Lexline today? I know I kept seeing Lexline popping up on X, but it was always like the worst hours for me because there's like a 7 hour difference between us. It's always like when my
Right.
kids are coming home and whatever. Always bummed to miss out on those spaces. Occasionally, I was able to join, and there was always like very very rich content. Not your crypto bros, like your I guess like elite crypto bros within
Yeah, we
because
had a
they're
lot of fun. We had a lot of fun doing those shows. The problem was, as we got into the bear market, of course, attention really started to wane, and I found that the format of doing the live Twitter Spaces was essentially becoming me talking to myself. And I decided at that point to pivot more to a newsletter platform and devote
Substack.
the podcast, yes, on Substack, the DeFi Defender, subtle pitch, and then use the Lex line as a podcast profile to do exactly what you do, which is either I'll post videos of myself talking about the latest developments in crypto, very short clips, or from time to time, I'll do interviews. And I've had the good fortune, just as you have, of interviewing some of the top people in crypto, both creators, artists, lawyers, builders. And after about 100 and I think we're at like 185 episodes of that,
Wow.
it's given me such a deep subject matter expertise in this stuff. And I'm really grateful for that because it was a great way to learn and be fully immersed.
And we are grateful to you. You've done a great service for the community. I've listened on and off for years, and I'm going to share the links in the show notes for the benefit of all our listeners.
Thank
You
you.
really do produce very, very excellent content and informative. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. Same.
Tell me a little bit. I mean, so your social media presence and the content you put out is incredibly important. There is definitely in the crypto space generally, but specifically in the crypto legal community, a thirst and a special. There's something that hits differently about a community of lawyers around crypto that doesn't exist in other legal sectors, from what I've found. People are generally very forthcoming with their advice and looking to collaborate with one another and work very much less competitive because perhaps because it's a small space and we're less stepping on one another's toes. But that community aspect is very much present, and the content is very much appreciated. So, like I said, I'm gonna share out all the links in addition to the podcast and the Substack. I know a few months ago you put out like an NFT for crypto lawyers. I never tapped into it. I just love it every time I see your profile picture. Walk me through that very quickly, just like what that experience was like and who can get involved if they're interested.
So to circle back to what you just said,
It's there in the background.
I
Perfect
100%
timing.
agree with what you said because I have found that the crypto lawyer space has been so embracing and so collegial. It started out for me as a NFT NYC 2021 group DM. I started it with some of our colleagues who wants to meet up for coffee while we're at NFT NYC. And from there, it just ballooned. And we created such a great community of lawyers that to this day still are active in that thread, asking questions, sharing content. And I agree with you, Yitzy. Of all the areas I've practiced in my career, this is by far the funnest area of law. So the NFT collection was my attempt to try to put something on chain that represented unification of a community. I built it on Base. It's a free mint, unlimited supply. I'll never close it. I don't know what I'll do with it. It's an experiment, just like most things in this tech. It's something that I think I'll be able to build on in the future, and I'd love to be able to deliver content directly through it. But just like everything else, it just takes time for that traction and that network adoption. So it's always going to be a part of my profile. It's always going to be a part of what I'm doing, but I'm just not sure how I'm going to execute on it yet.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll figure it out and you'll share that with us. I'm going to share the
Yes.
links for that as well. Anybody can mint one,
Cool.
right?
Yeah, it's open to anyone who has basically the rules are it's basically for anyone who has a passion for crypto law, don't have to be a lawyer, just anyone who wants to support because I have always maintained that you, me, the other lawyers in this space are the guardians of the blockchain. We are the people that protect this sector from overregulation, overreach by regulators, and I think we've learned very clearly the power of that as we're seeing it unfold now in the news cycle. But I've always maintained that without lawyers in this space doing the work that we do, this technology cannot thrive and survive because it is such a threat to institutions, to governments, that we are constantly battling that because they don't understand it, they're afraid of it, and a lot of people are dismissive about it. So we serve a vital role, and I want to use that NFT to sort of propagate that message around the community.
As like an honor badge for like I'm a crypto warrior or a DeFi defender rather.
Yes.
Love it, man. I love it. Okay. I wanna just stick on the crypto legal community for one more second before we delve a little bit more into your professional career, because I think there's a lot of interesting things for us to talk about there. So I didn't realize that you were the one who started or one of the ones who started the community. We have, for those who are listening and are not familiar, there's this. I came into it, I think, in at NFT NYC 2022. That was your second meeting. There's just like a meeting of crypto lawyers at a bar near the venue.
Yep.
To this day, some of those people are people that are, that my best and closest friends in the space. I met a lot of guys like Moish Peltz and Kai
Yep.
Lawrence and other colleagues in the crypto legal space there. And there's this fantastic, it's fantastic for certain reasons, for other reasons it's not, and I'll talk about that in a second, group on X called Scout 3. What is it? Scout 3?
Supreme
The
Court of Web
Supreme Court
3.
of
I
Web
didn't come up
3.
with that
Okay,
name,
yeah.
but
The Supreme Court of Web 3. It is the most amazing group of individuals engaging with one another on the absolute worst platform for engaging as a group. I love X as a platform to get news and to follow people, but the messaging experience is horrible, and the group messaging experience is even worse. And I think that the meta there of those bright minds could be 10,000 times better on WhatsApp or Telegram. I did try at one point to migrate it over to Telegram. I think I got something like 40 or 50% of the group to move over, but then all the good conversations were still happening on X. So the Telegram group remains pretty much dormant to this day. Maybe we could revive it after this call. I don't know. But the bottom line is that there's this phenomenal group of individuals there, a bunch of DeFi defenders, and I think I'm in like 6 or 7 different groups like that, from that just kind of gather legal professionals from around the world, and that those groups have been for my practice my biggest asset,
for sure.
both on given the professional ability that it gives me to expand my set of services to clients, and also just to have kind of a springboard to bounce ideas off of, and discuss all the very important things that happen in our space, like on an hourly basis. So thank you for being a part of that. Let's see what we could do to take it to the next level after this podcast.
I'd
So
love to do that.
that's on the Scout 3 community. Worst name ever. I think somebody got a Scout 3 tattoo, or is that just a joke?
I remember that floating around. I
Yeah. Okay.
can confirm that's not me.
Okay, good. So tell me a little bit about your actual practice. So you're the DeFi Defender. Presumably, you now represent criminals or alleged criminals within the DeFi space. What are some of the stories that you could share with us, from the battlefield,
Of
anonymously or
course.
not anonymously? Tell us a little bit more
Sure.
about like your
So a
your war
fascinating thing
stories.
happened. A fascinating thing happened. I just happened to be in the right time at the right place, because shortly after launching the DeFi Defense Lawyer and adding that as another suite of services on my crypto, on my criminal defense site, I quickly started to get clients locally. And what happened is the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Texas, where I practice, actually made it an emphasis and a focus of their investigative agenda to prosecute crypto crime cases. And they became one of the leading, I think, in my opinion, offices in the nation that's kind of taken the lead on this. They started going to training, they started collaborating with Secret Service, and they started creating different sting operations. One that's very famously known as Operation Crypto Runner, which has yielded a number of prosecutions in the area of cryptocurrency fraud. Now, what I'm predominantly involved in on the crypto criminal defense side are, unfortunately, cases involving people that have been duped into becoming money mules for transnational criminal organizations. It's a pattern that I'm seeing repeating itself. If you're familiar with Tornado Cash and the criminal prosecution in the Tornado Cash case, they're
But
prosecuting
just
that case.
for
Just a
the
little
benefit of
background.
our audience,
Sure.
money mules typically are people, all kinds of criminal organizations that are looking to move money from one place to another, but can't perform a KYC on themselves because they're criminals. Basically,
Exactly.
find some random dude in the street, or in the street in a jurisdiction where people are where they can open up bank accounts comfortably, and they'll take Mr. Random Dude and tell him, can you go and open up this bank account? But they won't actually give him any access to the bank account. Whatever his passport and or driver's license and details will be the face of the company or the bank account or whatever illicit activities that they're looking to perform. But he'll actually not have his hands at all on the money. But in the end of the day, when the authorities are looking to see where the crypto on and off ramp occurred, they'll find Mr. Money Mule, they'll put him in jail, and he'll say, I don't even know what you're talking about. Somebody just paid me $50 to open
Exactly.
up a bank account. So you're representing those guys.
Yeah, the unfortunate part about it is some of these people end up being victims themselves because they will get sucked into a fraud scheme where they're lured into investing money in this crypto investment platform. It's an overseas operation, and they'll be shown fake returns where they're making all this money, and then when it comes time to collect their money, they're told, "Oh, there's a tax you got to pay, or there's an administrative fee, or there's this, or there's that." People get frustrated. They want their money back. And then it transitions from that, which is commonly known as pig butchering, where they just target unsavvy, especially crypto non-savvy people, and lure them into this stuff. And then it graduates into, well, if you would like to, you can try to help us and we'll help you. So they'll do exactly what you talked about. Use your bank account to receive money from total strangers, forward that money to someone else who's going to convert it to Bitcoin, and then send it back to the transnational organization.
Wow.
So you have
So
all this
so it's like
domestic
you get
fraud
doubly
money.
screwed. You're
Yes.
scammed, and then like as a way out of the scam, they make you into a mule.
Yes, and there's a
Wow.
statute on the books which under the Tornado Cash criminal prosecution of Roman Storm, they're prosecuting him for money laundering and for being an unlicensed money transmitter, which is a almost strict liability statute where all the government really has to prove is that you used your bank account to receive money from people and you acted as quote unquote a business of money transmitter, very loose definition. You didn't have a proper license by either the state that you live in or the federal authorities, and you allowed your business to move funds through your account. You have no idea what the money has to do with. Sometimes they're straw businesses, they're fake businesses with bank accounts. Sometimes they're your own bank account. And once these people start engaging in this behavior, and it's crazy, but sometimes they don't even get paid to do this. They just do it. And now they're knee deep, up to their neck, I should say, in the conspiracy. And the transnational people rarely get prosecuted because it's really hard to get them back to the United States. So the low hanging fruit are these money transmitters. So I'm doing a lot of those types of cases. They're sad because they are really not savvy people, not criminals. They don't start out as criminals, but unfortunately, they get recruited into this, and then it's out of control, and now they're left holding the bag.
But so why is that interesting for the authorities? Like the authorities know when they find those money mules in the end of the day that they're just like a thread that they can hopefully pull to get to the real criminals. But if they're not successful in doing that, why is the money mule of any interest to them? Like what public interest is there for that poor guy to sit in prison for, even a day? Ultimately, he just kind of like fell into a series of bad events.
You're absolutely right. And I've pushed for a change in the way that prosecutors approach these cases by considering pretrial diversion. There was actually one very tragic case that was reported on CBS about a daughter who had no idea her mother was in the middle of this thing. She had a romantic interest with someone, of course, totally fake, the fake picture. I love you, sweetheart. Let's have a life together. But I need some money. I need some help. I'm stuck in this country. I need you to help me get out of this situation I'm in. It's usually an older lady. It's usually someone who's lonely. They become embarrassed and they become isolated from their family because they've sent all this money overseas, and then they quickly realize they're being taken advantage of, but they are too embarrassed to tell their family. And in this particular CBS story that profiled the daughter who discovered all this after her mother went missing, apparently when she started to unravel things, she realized her mother was in this online romance scam, and then apparently had set up a meeting with this person and never came back from that meeting. So I've tried very hard to convince the government to treat these people as victims, even though technically, under the cold,
They're the
hard letter of the
perpetrators.
law, they are the perpetrators. But the pushback I've gotten is that if they open that door, then they're enabling more people to do this behavior without consequences. So they're trying to reach a balance here between trying to send a firm message that you can't engage in this stuff and not being so soft that it encourages more people to get ensnared in this. It is tragic because under federal prosecution, even if you're lucky enough to come out of it with probation, let's say the government's lenient, the court departs downward from the guidelines, you're still a convicted felon and it just destroys your life. And for people that are, up in age, 50, 60, 70-year-old people, otherwise successful, to have that mark on their jacket, so to speak, is devastating.
Yeah, it's brutal. We actually discussed it at length with Erin West, who I'm sure you're familiar with. On a previous episode, she works very closely with a lot of these victims. Obviously, by way of policy, we can't say like, okay, money mules will not be prosecuted. But I think there should be like just like a context test where where you look at all the details and see like, okay, did this person actually actively do something wrong?
Yep.
And I get that it's a slippery slope and it's not a place necessarily that we want to go, but these people are already at rock bottom before this happens to them, so
Yep.
it just feels wrong.
And that's part of what motivates me to do what I do. So going back to the original question, I found this kind of niche area of practice where these cases started to come to me locally, and I started to get involved in these cases. And it's added another element to my law practice. I love doing it. And I also have had some work in the sector with helping builders and so forth. But predominantly, that's where most of my work comes from. It comes from criminal prosecutions, people that are targets of criminal investigation who need help navigating through those hard times.
So I excuse my like directness. I'm just Israeli and I can't help myself. So that seems similar to like being a public defense attorney. Like I presume these people don't have a lot of cash to pay. These don't sound like very lucrative um, cases to take. Like how are these guys able to pay in the end of the day?
So it's usually
I
two
guess that's
buckets of
a question
clients.
generally for
Yeah,
like these type of
no, no,
clients.
of course. It usually comes in two categories. One, it's usually people that have got a comfortable life, that are successful, that are at the end of their either career or already retired, who have been roped into this, and they have assets, they have money, so they can have the luxury of hiring a private criminal defense attorney. Or
Mm-hmm.
it's the other extreme. It's people who have been recruited and have been promised a nominal fee for letting their bank accounts be exploited in this way. And if they don't qualify for indigent defense, of course, they have to hire their own lawyer. But generally, at that point, these people are not really financially able to hire a lawyer because it's expensive to hire a federal criminal defense lawyer on the private side because of the consequences and the work involved. So I also provide that service locally in the federal courts where I take on indigent federal criminal defense cases. I do it for the same reasons I did it back in Florida as a public defender, because it gives me the opportunity to get in court and handle more federal cases and get more exposure to trial work in federal court, which is hard to do because not a lot of cases go to trial in federal court. So I, to this day, continue to provide that service to help people who cannot afford to hire me, but also need a good defense lawyer, because it also serves me and continues to build my skill set and give me trial exposure.
Wow. Thank you for your service. No, seriously, it's very, very commendable. I've spent my entire career working with entrepreneurs and builders. I always say to my clients or to potential clients, like when they ask, can you explain exactly what it is you do? I say, we're builders, we're not fighters. Like if at any point
Yeah.
shit hits the fan, we refer you to Carlos. We don't, I've never been into court ever in 10 years of practice and hope to never go into court. So again, thank you for your service. Somebody's got to do it. And you seem to be
Yeah.
doing a fantastic job. Keep doing what you're doing. Tell me,
Thank you.
as an American and as an American in crypto, what are your thoughts on the current administration's steps towards more clear regulation, recent announcement of a US Bitcoin reserve and some other random shit coins, some of them less random. than others. Would love to get your thoughts on that.
So, first of all, you've been in the trenches with me. You've seen everything that we endured during the Biden administration and during Elizabeth Warren's war on crypto. And there were some pretty scary times along that ride because I'm guessing a lot of the business you get are people that have a concern about building in the United States and want to build offshore, want to build in a jurisdiction where there's clarity, regulatory clarity, so they can have comfort in what they're building. And what happened in this country is that due to very aggressive enforcement and regulatory behavior by the SEC through Gary Gensler's time there, we chased a lot of innovation overseas and we stifled innovation. You couple that with what we've discovered thanks to the work of Coinbase in uncovering Operation Choke Point 2.0, which was the debanking of the crypto sector in the United States. We have discovered on the other side of this presidential election that there was, in fact, a coordinated effort to stifle this sector. It was motivated by, I think, a desire to have a national cryptocurrency, a CBDC. It was motivated by concerns about how crypto could be utilized to commit fraud and crime, even though the dollar is still the dominant vehicle for doing that. So, what is amazing to me is that I don't think we could have scripted a more amazing transition for crypto than what we're seeing now. It was unthinkable that we would ever see a crypto summit at the White House where the door would be open to builders in the sector to come in and have a conversation, where we would have an SEC that would be dropping lawsuit after lawsuit and enforcement investigations and actions in the sector the way we're seeing right now. All of that a mere 6 months ago would have been unthinkable. We
Unimaginable.
would still be operating off the playbook of we need Yitzy offshore to help us build an entity so we can avoid getting caught in this morass of lack of regulatory clarity. So I'm extremely bullish on the future of crypto in the United States. I know that the United States is obviously going through a tough transition period right now where we're seeing that this change in the power structure is certainly triggered a lot of pushback from the left. However, staying in our lane in what we're doing, this is an amazing time because we are finally making it accommodating to come back and build in the US. And we've let the world know we want to lead in this sector. Could not be in a better position right now. And I'm just excited for what's coming.
Absolutely, as am I. What do you think we're going to see, like the main changes that we're going to see as far as people who are looking to build out of the United States is concerned?
I think now that the SEC is genuinely interested in giving regulatory clarity as opposed to the BS line that we got, well, just come in and register, when we all knew that there was just no way that that would ever benefit a client to do that because of all the potential pitfalls that would come with that. Now we have the SEC, for example, this coming Friday, hosting a live, open to the public roundtable where they're going to have kind of a sandbox think tank on how they can restore market confidence in the United States in building in crypto. So I think the signs that we are seeing are going to encourage people that it is now safe to come back here and build. And the fact that we are making it a national initiative to accumulate crypto assets in a strategic reserve, be it the Bitcoin reserve or the more non-traditional crypto assets that are being considered. This is a fundamental step forward in legitimizing this technology. I firmly believe, Yitzy, that everything is going to be tokenized. Our society is obviously becoming more digital than less digital. And it is inevitable that we're going to see blockchain technology be integrated into every aspect of our life. Any asset, any commodity, any security that can be digitized will be and will be tradable on blockchains 24/7, in my opinion.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
On that note, as a NFT, I guess, fan, there aren't many of us left. What are your thoughts about NFTs as a product, as an industry? Are NFTs dead, or are we going to see some kind of a revival of like those legacy projects? Or are we going to see new projects?
I think NFTs are evolving. The NFTs that we discovered back in 2021, the PFP community and the original marketing strategies that were launched back then, all essentially, as we're seeing painfully, are going to zero. There are some standouts. Of course, there are communities that have continued to work into pivoting into physical brand, in the sector where they've got like a presence with a physical item, or they're building in the sense of launching tokens and so forth. So we're seeing evolution, but just like the early stages of any new technology, people have to test the limits, people have to experiment. A lot of what launched during the dot-com boom no longer exists. But on the other side of it, we had Google, we had major brands like Amazon come across. And just like we have Pudgy Penguins right now and other uh, cryptocurrency, NFT based tokenized communities, what I think we're going to see is that NFTs are going to become more ubiquitous as a ticketing portal, as a membership portal. And of course, they'll always have value in the form of digital art, more in the sense of people will appreciate having provenance of having collected these things, especially from the early era. These things are going to age well. When we finally reach the peak of this bull market that's incoming, it is inevitable, in my opinion, that people will start to take their profits and flex their wins in buying high-end NFT art. So I don't think that part of the sector will ever die.
I tend to agree with you. I think that some of the digital art that was created during the NFT boom and even now is, phenomenal art. And I think, and I've said this many times in the past, but I agree with what you just, I'll echo what you just mentioned. Some of the communities that came out around this art are just like, have tremendous value in and of themselves and
Of course,
continue to thrive today. And I think we'll probably see that strengthening over time. And I'm
100%.
I hope to be part of it. I actually haven't gotten into Discord like in like 2.5 years, but every once in a while, I think I'm gonna come back in and see if any of those communities are still alive. I don't know. Maybe you're more active than I am, but there was a time when like people were GMing and GMing every day, and
Yep.
it was really like a beautiful thing to watch.
It was a fun time. There was so much enthusiasm and so much excitement about what was possible. And then the bear market hit. And then we had the regulatory tsunami of legal action. It scared people away. But the people that stayed showed up every day and continued to learn and continued to bring value to the space. I think ultimately will be rewarded for the time they've spent and that they didn't leave. I think you're going to see a lot of people who did leave want to come back. And I would suggest that the connections that we made, the access to the early builders in this space that we have established, I think as this continues to get traction, as we continue to see blockchain become more ubiquitous in our society, these early builders and innovators are going to be virtually impossible to get to. So props for being early, because you've been able to make connections with some of the biggest thinkers in this space, be it the Jack Butchers, be it the other artists and creators like Xcopy and so forth, Punk 6529. These people are going to be legendary in the arc of this conversation, and getting access and actually getting follows from these people and being able to engage with these people is going to be harder the noisier this space gets. So I think sticking to it and being active will ultimately pay off, because I don't see this technology going anywhere.
Amen. I I agree with everything you said, and I hope to see it come to fruition at some point.
Yeah, for sure. For
Carlo,
sure.
this has been fantastic. Some parting words for our audience.
So I I think it's critically important at this juncture that people understand this technology and prepare for where it is going. I think people have a tendency to be very dismissive about crypto. especially Bitcoin, which is the granddaddy of all cryptocurrencies, and they dismiss it as being simply digital code that has no value. And what I try to do, and the content that I create, is I try to, as best I can, educate the community about how the legal and regulatory changes that are happening every day in this sector affect the broader macro crypto market and how that impacts your bags specifically. So I think it's important, and my parting message to people would be to take some time to understand what is happening right now, because we are essentially witnessing a crypto renaissance in the United States. We are seeing firsthand institutions, major corporations, major traditional finance houses, and nation states all accumulating Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency assets on their balance sheets. And while the consumer might be at this point not yet onboarded and still have reservations about this, I would suggest to people to zoom out and look at what's happening where the smart people are putting their time and attention, like Larry Fink and BlackRock and Michael Saylor and the United States government. These moves that are happening are going to have a lag time. And this is that lag time. It's not going to last much longer, in my opinion. And I just worry that people will regret that they took their eye off this ball and didn't at least take the time to learn and pay attention to this stuff.
Carpe diem. Those are your parting words. Carlo, thank you so much for joining me today. I will share links to LexLine and to your website and to all of your Substack newsletter, of course, and all of your other rich content, especially your X profile, which is where you get out most of your meta. And thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. And let's work on building a better communication portal.
Yes, please, let's get us off X.
Great talking with you, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, man. Welcome to Beyond the Code, the podcast where industry experts and brilliant legal minds discuss the impact of new emerging technologies. I'm your host, Yitzy Hammer, a lawyer and tech enthusiast. Join us as we explore the legal, regulatory, and ethical issues surrounding AI, blockchain, and more. Get ready to go beyond the code and stay ahead of the game.